Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Shahab and welcome back to the series on building AI-powered agentic geospatial applications. In the previous video, we set up the project, the starter kit, and we went through the code base and we learned about the different parts of the code, the patterns, the organization of the project, and some other things. In this video, we are going to add some more features, especially some geospatial tools. And these are basic though, but that would be good to start with. And over time, we're going to add more advanced features. So let's get into it and see how it works. Let's go to the board and see what we are going to do. The first thing that we're going to do is to add client-side geospatial analysis tools using Turf.js. So Turf.js is the most popular client-side geospatial library for JavaScript, so check it out. It has a very nice API, it's very powerful, and it has interactive examples as you can see in here. We're going to add four main tools, geospatial tools: area calculation, distance calculation, or actually length calculation in our context, and Centroid calculation and buffering. So all these are going to be run on the user's browser, and that's why it's client-side. And the reason that it's client-side and we chose it to be client-side is that we want it to be fast and we don't want it to send any data to the remote server and then get the results back. So for simplicity. The next thing that we have to do is that we're going to add, or we're going to integrate Turf.js functions, geospatial tools, with our map, which is based on Maplibre GL library. And for that, we need to listen to the drawings. So what does it mean? It means that when the user draw a polygon, we want the Turf.js gets the information about the polygon, the GeoJSON data from the Maplibre, and then it processes that GeoJSON data, and in this case, for example, calculates the area and gives us the results back. And as a bonus, we're going to also add a geocoding or a search bar to the system. Let's take a look at the new version of our app. So this is the new version that has some new looks. And as you see, we now have a full screen map, and we also have a map menu dock in here, or menu bar, and that shows four buttons. We have the search bar, we have the geospatial tools buttons, or tools in general, and we also have two other buttons that in this video they don't work, but we're going to add functionality to them in the next few videos. One of them is our AI assistant that will be added, and also a capability to import data. For example, if the user has GeoJSON or shapefile data, they can import them and then use them in the app. As an example, for the search bar, if I search for an address or city or whatever, it will be zoomed into the address. For the geospatial tools, if I, as an example, draw a polygon and come here and do calculate area, because it's a polygon, we have two options, calculate area and calculate centroid. You see that the area of the polygon is shown here. Or if I click on calculate centroid, the centroid of this polygon is shown in here. If I draw a map, a line, and then if I calculate distance, the length of the line is shown. Or if I select a point, and then if I come here and then click on buffer and select 10, it creates a buffer around the point. And when I said that event listeners or listeners that we need to add to our app to get the results back from the Maplibre and then use them in the Turf.js, one of the things that should be noted in here is that when I click on the map, my interaction causes the drawings to disappear. And this is because of the listeners that we have added. So we'll see how it works. Okay, so let's go back to the code base and see what we have in here. So we have made some changes. So make sure that you fetch and then you pull the new updates, and do npm install each time because we may have added some new packages. Let's see what we have. Let's go to the features, and now we have, again, just like before, the map display feature and three other new features. We have the geocoding, geospatial analysis, map menu doc. And if you remember in the previous version of the app, we had the home feature and we removed it because we don't need it anymore. And let's start with the map menu doc, and it's the simplest of all, I guess. So this contains this part of the app or the UI, and it receives some functions, and these functions are actually callbacks. So what does it mean? It means that if the user clicks on this function or this button, what should happen? Okay, so the functionality that is tied to that button comes to this component. We'll handle that differently in the future for some applications, but for simplicity, it's done like this for now. We have some states that I will talk about them later, and you see the different parts of the component. We have, for example, the popover that shows for example, this is a popover, or if I click and and if I buffer and apply, so this is this popover that we have in here. So for the buffer we have in here, so you can see that in here. We also have some other things, for example, the AI assistant that's not working right now, but we're going to add functionality to them later. So let's go to let me see what else we have in here. Let's go to the map display. We have the analysis result. So what is the analysis result? The analysis result is this component, this popover that is shown on the map that shows the result of the analysis. So in this case, it just shows the values or the buffer size or the centroid and things like that. So this is taken care of by this component. We also have the map display. So the map display is now more organized because I moved some of the other parts to their dedicated separate files to improve the organization of the project. You can see them in here. So we have the analysis result, we have the map menu doc, which are the two components that are in the map. Okay. And we have hooks here. So if you're not familiar with hooks, or React hooks are state management functions, or functions used for state management in React. And you can have built-in state managements like use effect, use state, use ref, and things like that, or your own custom ones like what we have in here. For example, maybe let me start with the use map initialization that is taking care of the initialization of the map. So whenever that we load the page, the map should be shown to the screen, and you can see we have the OpenStreetMap, we have the map buttons in here. So these buttons, these three buttons that you see, and we also have a feature, an empty feature collection that is an empty layer that we add to the map. So this is like a placeholder, and it contains for example, layers that are created or added to the map as a result of the geospatial tools that we run. As an example, when I apply in here, you can see that this circle is shown and is added as a layer to the map. And this is actually added to this, or this source that we have in here, you see. So we add this layer first as an empty placeholder, and then we update it when a new layer is supposed to be added to the map. I will show you what it means in a moment. So these are just some simple functionalities. Again, so if it's a polygon, it should be styled and added as a layer. You can see that. If it's a point, it should be like this. And if I go to use this geospatial analysis, you can see what I mean by that. So we have some functions in here. So you see that these functions, one of them is updating the analysis layer, which is if I go back in here, which is actually this one, which is first empty. Okay, but when the new layer is going to be added, it's updated like that. So it's updated. The GeoJSON that is returned from the Turf.js is added to the map. And then if you remember, I said that when we click on the map, for example, when I do this, the map or the layer that is added by the Geospatial tool, it disappears. And the reason for that is that each time that the user wants to run another tool, the previous one should be replaced. So for this example, this shouldn't be, there's no practice for that, but I just wanted to show you how listening to an event works in this context. So for that, we do this clear analysis, which means that we clear any previous layer, and then the new one is added to the map and replacing it. So you see that we have different functions here. So what should happen when the buffer button is clicked? It should calculate the buffer, it should add it to the map and things like that. And then as you see, the analysis layer should be updated. So this means that the buffer should be added to the map. And we use callback, and the reason is that we want to minimize the likelihood of, or remove the likelihood of rendering unnecessarily. This happens a lot in different React projects. You see that some React apps or Next.js apps are slow, or for example, they render unnecessarily. That's because they are not properly optimized to make sure that they are not re-rendered unnecessarily. So use callback is one of the ways that we can make sure that re-rendering or unnecessarily rendering does not happen. What else do we have? We also have use map draws that contains these tools that we have, the drawing tools. So we add them in this component, and you see that we have some styles for them. You don't need to add them because they come, anything with Maplibre GL map comes with its own style. But if you want to change the style of some of these components, especially drawing tools, you can do that in here, or for some parts of the map you can do it in this global CSS. So it depends what you really want to change. But this is how you can do that inline in the component if you want to. And you see that we add the buttons, that with the drawing buttons, and setting up our event listeners, which listen to the interactions that the user has with the map. Why is it important? Because, for example, we want to know when the user draws a polygon or a line or a feature in general, when they want to delete it, and what should happen as a result of that. So all these are handled in here that you can see in here. And then you can tweak it and improve it if you want to. Okay, so we now have everything covered. Let me just see if I missed anything. And I think that we missed the turf utils. So if I go back to maybe this geospatial analysis, you see that we have some functions in here that are calculated as a result of running these tools. For example, what should happen, as I said, when the handle distance click is pressed. So there are functions in here, and these functions are implemented in the turf-utils that you can review. So the calculate area, polygon area, and some of the things that we have are all in here. So you see that how simple it is to use turf, and it's just a single line implementation, and it's very nice. Last part is the address search, where the user searches for an address and the map is zoomed to that location. We have the handle search function that gets the URL, and the URL is used to fetch the location of or geocoding part or geocoded address for that location. And we use Nominatim. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but this is I think the only free API for geocoding that you can use. There are some limitations, so make sure to read their policy. So in that search URL that we have to use for the query, we need to get the search query as the input. So the search query is the address that the user enters. For example, I entered Ottawa, so that's the search query. And then we also need to specify the format that is returned from this fetching or this function or this API. And we tell it that we want it to be GeoJSON. Then we tell it that we want it to return only one address, not more. And finally, if you just use a flag of 1 for the address tails, it means that it breaks down the address into city, street, country. So we don't need it right now, but just let's keep it if we need it in the future. And we also have the main component of the search of the UI, which is in this one, the button and also the input box. So in a large scale application, you barely see that these two parts are mixed together, but for simplicity, we just put them inside one single file. So I think that I covered everything that we wanted to go through in this video, and the app, as you have seen, is going to be more complete. And when we add the AI assistant in the next few videos, and we're gonna integrate the powerful LLMs with these tools, and you'll see that things are going to be more interesting, and it's going to be more advanced when we add server-side or server tools to the system, where the tools or advanced geospatial tools are going to be run on the remote server. So we will see all those things, and I'm sure that you will enjoy them. But in the meantime, go through the code base, review different things, and if you have any questions, let us know, and we'll see you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.